I want to move forward and have a discussion about integrity around food security. We're at a point in the period of life in the United States where we never thought we would be. Now, if we back up a little bit, we've discussed this quite a bit. Right around the 2008 to 2012 timeframe, when a specific individual was president, we saw a huge turn in our country. Although that we'd been working up to this since the 40s, specifically 1947, and swift changes in the courts that occurred in 62 and 63, it really blindsided a lot of people as they were replaced in the workforce and no longer had resources to provide for the family. Many had already lost their jobs due to downsizing and right sizing, and I'm going to talk about it on the next recording. But we're at the point now where this country is being brought to its knees. And although we hope that with God's grace, we will be able to boomerang once we hit rock bottom, but we have not even been brought to our knees yet. Unfortunately, we've got a ways to go. So I want to have this conversation about food security. So this was May 23rd, 2016. This is shareeverything.com. Kissinger, control food and you control the people. Kissinger stated, control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control the people. Who is controlling oil right now? No, don't point the fingers over to Russia. Who is controlling oil right now in the United States? Who got us into energy freedom and who took us out? Control food and you control the people. People who need food not only for themselves, but for their children become desperate. And in desperation, people do things that in a right mind they would normally never do. U.S. strategy deliberately destroyed family farming in the U.S. and abroad and led to 95% of all grain reserves in the world being under the control of 6 multinational agribusiness corporations. Now, we keep hearing that, right? No matter what mind map we look at, we see that there's only a handful of companies that control the world. There's only a handful that pull all the strings, and they manipulate the economy. They manipulate our education. They manipulate us psychologically, financially, and emotionally. It's a very simple strategy, it says, and the fix is already in. Whether it can or will be reversed will determine the fate of humanity. Again, this was a warning for 2016. As Noam Chomsky pointed out, in both old and new world orders, the central goal has pivoted around the issue of control. Control of the population is a major task of any state that is dominated by particular sectors of the domestic society and therefore functions primarily in their interest. Such particular sectors, as referred to, are the minority elite who pursue controlling strategies to engineer, strategically plan out and engineer nation and international affairs in line with their aims. And these aims are for the most part based on greed and power. It's never based on love or your best interest. And the need to keep the masses content and docile. You can see the link there if you want to read more, but we have the foundation for what we're going to talk about today. Control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control the people. So I want to show you what a kind, loving government we have under this administration. We have USDA, Farm Service Agency, and I'll point out as a federal employee, much of our education was housed under the USDA. DoD, Department of Defense, also offered broad education, but I always found it very odd that a lot of it came from the USDA. This was September 9th, 2022, so this was just in the last few days. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, is expanding its People's Garden Initiative. Isn't that nice? It's actually including eligible gardens nationwide. Hey, see if you're eligible. It's kind of like a contest. School gardens, community gardens, urban gardens, and small-scale agricultural projects in rural, suburban, and urban areas can be recognized as people's gardens. You can get that honor. But you just have to register on the USDA website and meet criteria, including, are you benefiting the community? Are you working collaboratively? Incorporating conservation practices and educating the public. Affiliate People's Garden locations will be indicated on a map on the USDA website. Hey, everybody, this is known as tracking, featured in USDA communications and provided with a People's Garden sign. At this point, I'm really hoping that there's no stupid people listening to this. This is a catch. This is the same as a few years ago. If you didn't have an ID, go ahead and just register for one. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go ahead and get in the system. This is the same as if you have a weapon for your own security. Let's go ahead and create a list. So if somebody else takes it or somebody happens, we have it. Just self-register. And where are we today with that? Here, they want you to give up your entire community garden, your own food security, so that you can have the honor of being recognized in their system where they're going to track. And just as when I was a federal employee, they attack you by going down the list that you provide to them. One by one by one, you can watch them just work on their playbook. Is not unique. They do it over and over again. So no, do not register for the USDA People's Garden Initiative. Don't fall in the trap. Why are so many U.S. food processing plants set on fire and burning down across the country? This is a staple of our food. Now, we also know that in less than 24 hours, the transportation arms of our country, ports and trains, have voted to strike. The government has already gone after trucks, and now they're going to take out the rest of the transportation for our supply chain. The jellyfishing that they've done around the ports has not been enough, so the attacks continue. So this was April 23rd, 2022. We're talking way back. By June, there were almost 100 that had caught on fire. It says here, I don't know how up on this thing you may be, but there's a situation going on in our food supply that is starting to become alarming. Normally, I would put a story like this squarely in with the MSNBC Conspiracy Network, and we now know conspiracy means spoiler alert, but more and more information is coming out and more people are noticing it. Last month, our wonderful president said that food shortages are coming. They tell you what they're going to do to you, and they're going to be real. I tell you, we are going to be brought to our knees in this country. The White House mouthpiece, thank goodness this liar doesn't have that job anymore. But now we've got a complete fool standing there lying to us. At the same time, made a contradicting statement. We're not expecting a food shortage here at home, but we do anticipate that higher energy, fertilizer, wheat, corn could impact the prices of growing and purchasing critical food supplies for our country around the world. Now, at this point, I put out a call to people saying, hey, buy beer. Not an alcoholic here, don't like beer. But the reality is at the same period of time, then they're not expecting food shortages, yet the president is saying that they're coming. Both aluminum and wheat prices went through the roof. And that combination is a foundation of the American culture. Beer in a can. We are expecting food shortages, and we know that we are, and for a number of reasons. We are not just expecting a short term, there's nothing on the shelves, which we've seen a flux. If grocery stores have food now, if you look closely, if the shelves are full, it's because they have cheaper items that are spread wider out on the shelves, taking up a larger space. Where normally there would be multiple different items and types and just a few of each, they're spreading it out to make it not look so bare. Here it says 760 WJR's Food First Michigan host Philip Knight offered his last month. Fertilizer's up 3 times what it was a year ago. So are we paying for that in the grocery store? But as long as we can curb any panic buying, I think we'll weather the storm. But it isn't about just weathering the storm. We are being replaced economically, socially, housing market, our jobs, we are being replaced. So in this case, we have an extreme food shortage coming down the pike. We've got the cattle industry that has had to, for a number of reasons, cull back its cattle. And so beef prices actually went down as they were trying to quickly offload the product. And yet you need cows in order to produce the next generations and the next generations. And there aren't enough there to meet the reproduction goals that we need, because they didn't have enough to feed them. They had to terminate early. This leads us to years of food insecurity. Now, what about wheat? What about corn? How about all that ethanol production that replaced our fields for years? Ethanol really never took off in this country, and yet it devastated the soil. This is not an accident. This is planned. Now, when we look at these plants, there's a number of things that happen. Do things catch on fire? Well, yes, there's accidents. But an established business, an established building with established wiring doesn't really just happen. So we've got a number of factors. Either they've now hired people with such incompetence that they're not able to even handle basic tasks, which would lead to a flow of issues that would be imminent. Or they're actually being attacked. We've seen some airplanes fly into these, but why didn't they land next door? Why do they land inside of these? And more than one. I think we're up to almost a dozen now planes landing inside food processing plants. I mean, that's just absurd. Now, what about, we know that we're being hacked. In one of the videos last week, I showed the heat map of the cybersecurity attacks into the United States. And as you might notice or recall from that video, the majority of the attacks are actually coming from DC into the United States. Our own government is attacking us. And if that's what they're doing, then as we've seen from the Iranian missile scenario, a remote computer program can be installed into a computer if there's a hole in the network, or many different ways they can get in. In this case, a USB drive was plugged into somebody who had connections into the Iranian plant. And then it can be controlled by outside. And what they did was they put pulses. They would turn on the machine, turn off the machine, turn on the machine, turn off the machine, and they would vibrate in such a way that some of the bolts started falling off. And eventually they breached security of the Iranian nuclear plant. So are we having cybersecurity attacks on our food processing? We're not getting the truth. After the first one, there should have been an investigation. Now we've surpassed long over 100 of these. Why don't we have answers? Now, on many levels, I actually think it's a blessing, because a lot of what's being processed as these is what we call literally processed food, and we shouldn't be eating it anyways. So it's being purged. But many of these are meat processing, pure items that are simply being packaged to be sent to us. And that's being destroyed as well. So again, they love you so much. They want you to participate in their garden initiative, to get on their list, and they can track you too. Now, why is this so beneficial? We've been tracking this as well, right? Amish farmer raided by the FBI, because you know those Amish people sure are mischievous. The overbearing government. This was August 24th, so this is just a couple weeks ago. Amish farmer Farmer Amos Miller, and what other name would it be, right? Was raided by the FBI the other day for not using various chemicals and food treatment methods. He was not poisoning the food supply. He was raising it naturally and then dispersing it to a specific group of people who signed up through a co-op type program, knew what they were buying, and were so grateful for the opportunity to get pure food. Yet he was not adding chemicals and food treatment methods. So the government deemed it necessary to send the FBI, who were watching, to raid this person. For example, Miller and his community do not pasteurize milk because the process kills bad bacteria, and as well as the good bacteria that's needed for healthy digestion. Our food supply is poisoning us. Not only are they removing anything that's live, helpful, and healthy nutrients in our food, they're destroying the soil, and they're going after those who decided that, you know what? In my body and my life, I want to live a healthy lifestyle. Not pasteurizing milk has been illegal in many states for a long time. And yet once it's pasteurized, it goes through a chemical process that, as my mom refers to it, the milk becomes snot. That's it, nothing else. This is really serious what we're seeing here. So this is a person who stands up for not only itself and feeds his family, but feeds his community and the community around them. Very successful man who is helping out this world. And we know how far the FBI can go. 2018 marked 25 years after Waco. The truth has come out. This was not at all what we were shown on TV or what happened. 25 years ago, the FBI assaulted the home and church of a religious sect in Waco, Texas. 76 of these beautiful human beings who dedicated their life to God, who lived a very simple, off-grid kind of life, very low-key, keeping to themselves, and 27 of their beloved children were murdered by our government. And as the truth speaks out about those who originally met the founder, who were invited to participate, who were allowed to come and go as they wanted, everybody's going to have their own explanation or version of what happened. But somehow the FBI's version is drastically different than any other version out there. No, the government does not want you to succeed. The government does not want you to be independent. The government does not want you to grow your own food. The government wants to control you. That's all they're after. Kissinger once again stated, control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control the people. The US is deliberately destroying family farming and abroad, and has led to 95% of all grain reserves in the world being controlled by just 6 multinational agribusiness corporations. This is a planned strategy. And you know who else knew a strategy? We've studied Joseph in the Bible, and Joseph talks to us about his vision. You know, Joseph was sold as a slave by his own brothers. And yet, because of his wideness and his wiseness and his walk with God, he got visions that there was a famine coming. So he set aside 7 years of wheat, and he prepared them to have abundance during this period of time. And Joseph was wisely rewarded for his actions, as he not only saved the entire empire, he eventually was reunited with his family. Yes, people's gardens are important now more than ever. As you know, I'm part of an initiative that is in fact growing seeds. We are now at a seedling stage. We are dispersing them out into the community so people can then plant them in their gardens with guidance and start launching a food security program around our community. This is not a second harvest, where second harvest gets processed food, day-old food, and then they charge nonprofits to give it out. This is not the game we're playing here. This isn't you come to me and I give you what you need, which is poison. This is, here's the seeds. We're planting it in God's soil. You raise the plants. You harvest the fruits or the vegetables of the plants. And then we're going through a seed preservation process in order to have those seeds again for next year. So of course, we're not using genetically modified seeds. We're using non-GMO heirloom seeds because we know that Kissinger was right. And we know that Brandon was right. There is a food shortage coming, and it is not by accident or random drought. We've been jellyfished, and it's all being taken away. So yes, go out and start your community garden, not just for yourself and your family, but spread it through your community. And as you spread the love and the seeds, you don't have to register that anywhere. You know how to find that garden plot, and you know how to take care of it. My friends, stay vigilant. We really need to stay on our toes. Control your own fate as much as you can and look to God. Blessings to you.